Hey, Efren, how you doing?
Good morning or good evening.
Where are you right now?
I'm in Canada working.
Oh, you're in Canada. It's not morning for either of us. I'm in New York. So it's so appreciative of you to jump on like kind of last minute and talk about this thing that I'm sure you haven't talked to death by now over the last couple of years.
You think?
But
I
yeah,
don't think
so
I. Why would we want Napoleon Dynamite to ever die? Because it's like we all look at it and we all go, we remember we were all like that.
yeah, totally. So I revisited the movie recently, and so much about it resonates in the sense that, it captures a moment in time that a lot of people can relate to, but I can only imagine what that's like for you, being so much of a younger person at that point in time and playing an even younger character, and in a movie that nobody could have expected at that time would have the kind of longevity that it's ended up having. So I'm curious how your relationship to Pedro as a character has evolved over the years.
To this guy, I
It's a
mean,
cute doll you got there.
it's I take him everywhere I go. He's a reminder it, that we all got to lead with hope. Now, mind you, like there was a moment when I was working on a TV series um and I did my agent called me up and they said you have an audition for a feature film, a big studio picture, and Napoleon Dynamite. And so I remember having to audition for Napoleon and auditioning for this film, and I booked both jobs, and they worked at the same time. And my father told me, because I went up to my dad and I told him, hey, listen, this is what's going on. What do I do? And my father said, just follow your heart. And I thought, like, uh, what the, what does that mean? So, and I found it to be funny that that's what Napoleon says to Pedro, follow your heart. And so, because of that, I made the choice of doing Napoleon Dynamite. And when I committed to that, one thing that you learn in acting school is that you find a word that really defines who the character is, and I thought something that came up was hope, and throughout the years, we all know the story. Like life is about you can lead with a positive attitude and you can lead with hope, and you hope that a great outcome would come of the hard work that you would do. I was just young and with the work, and I trusted Jared Hess and all the work that he had done with him and Jerusha, who have created the script, with all the rest of the character actors, John Hayes and Dietrich Bader, Chandrella, Haley Duff, and Tina Majorino. They're with all the great actors who are in the film that rooted into developing these characters. So for me, into these characters. So for me, throughout these 20 years, I constantly lead with hope and say maybe something would good comes out of the work that I do. So if I could
Yeah.
tell a story and be a part of that, then
Yeah.
my job as a person.
Was there a moment in time where you realized that this little indie movie was actually resonating in a bigger way? I mean, was there a point in time where it was like, did you see those vote for Pedro shirts popping up or something like that?
It's so visceral that having to see not only traveling around the country but going all over the world and seeing people talk about Napoleon Dynamite because they all kind of relate to every character, whether you're Napoleon or a Pedro or an Uncle Rico, right? I never thought it would be as big as it did. That it would sum up to be even 20 years afterwards. People are still talking about it. People are still for Halloween dressing up as those characters. Being a part of it gives me a reminder of like, you know, um, we all love great stories. It's like lightning in a bottle. And I'm kind of a part of that.
But I gotta ask you, like, was there a moment where it became real to you? Like, oh my gosh, this movie is really taking off.
I'm still, I think, maybe in that phase because,
Really?
and I continue on just like the rest of the actors, whether we're doing theater or working
Yeah.
on a short film or TV show, we continue on with our journey as artists. But it's it still has become it's so overwhelming the fact that even 20 years it still moves. I'm still surprised how people are talking about it generation to generation. And I don't know what that is. Maybe it's us just trying to figure out life.
I love that. Also, there's something really amazing about the way that this movie changes over time. I mean, I have to tell you, when I first saw this movie 2 decades ago, all I was thinking about is Napoleon is such a wild character. I've never seen this character in movies before. But 20 years later, I mean, I'm sure this wasn't true for everyone, but now I look at it and I think this is actually Pedro's story. And Napoleon is sort of, in a way, his vindication or his say he helps him through a certain path in life. But I think that part of it is kind of fascinating, is that you can almost see it both ways at the same time. And I wonder how you feel about sort of that different reading.
Um, it 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 kind of reminds me of Midnight Cowboy with John Voight, where there's these two characters from different worlds. They find each other and they form a friendship. They kind of help each other's dreams come true. That goes the same with Midnight Cowboy. Same thing with yeah, there are moments kind of lies here and there, but there's a brother, and you see that throughout the picture. Um, and when I think about it, I go, it really is the that moment Napoleon has an opportunity to grow, and he does. Napoleon and Pedro kind of help each other out, make each other's dreams come true. You know, Pedro is kind of like his Jiminy Cricket to Pinocchio. Kind of says, work on your skills, try this, try different things that'll make you grow as a person. And Napoleon, rather than complaining about life, when he realizes that his best friend's in trouble, he decides to do something for his best friend, and something great happens to the both of them. Napoleon gets stabbed, and Pedro becomes president.
And also, I think there's something that, this movie says something about small town America where it's like, there's so many different kinds of people packed into these small towns. I'm curious how you relate to kind of the cultural effect of Napoleon Dynamite and the world that it captured at that point in time.
But there's something that I also noticed about the film itself. It looks into loneliness. When you feel like you're the oddball, which is pretty much about 100%. We all feel like we need to be a part of a community or form a community. And just to feel like we're going somewhere in life. And I think, especially with the country right now, things are things are difficult. But you know what? It's life gets easier when you go through it with a friend. When you have somebody who's guiding you in a positive direction. Yeah, and you see that with all the characters. Even what's wonderful about the movie is that at the very end of the movie, something great happens to each and every character. Uncle Rico gets that girl who shows up. Kip gets married. Napoleon gets the girl. Pedro becomes president. Sandy gets the llama. you know, all's well that ends well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's something really great about that feeling of closure to that story. And it must be really interesting to you meeting fans on the street or even people now who might not recognize you from all those years ago. What's that like when you actually get like FaceTime with people who have had this like really powerful relationship to the movie?
Well, I'll tell you when it gets very difficult when I'm working on a project and you're shooting outdoors with a lot of people and they're like, "Oh my God, that's Pedro." I'm like, "Shh, I gotta focus on this new character." So
Totally.
that gets challenging. And as an actor, you kind of want to hold on to the spark and the life of not only the project but of the character themselves. But you learn how to trust the the creative art of really developing a character within the framework of a story. So if I could do that as an artist, then I've done my job as an artist, as an actor. But to me, it's amazing to see families of different generations, from the grandparents to the parents to the college kids, the teens, and the little kids. When they see me, and they're like, Pedro, like, yeah, like how does this 8-year-old know about this movie? Because they find it so funny, you know. I mean, this Dynamite family having to order a time machine online, hoping they could go back in time. Like, who does that? You know? So, and
Yeah.
we all, especially you guys in the Hamptons, you all have an Uncle Rico.
Oh my God. Everyone's got an Uncle Rico. That's
Yeah,
amazing. There's that great George Carlin bit. Everyone's got an Uncle Dave, but really it's an Uncle Rico. I love
yeah.
that. That it's so interesting to hear you say that because one thing, this is probably the most sensitive aspect of all this stuff, but it really resonates for me that this movie involves a relationship between a white kid and a Latino kid. My family's Colombian. And so, one thing I found going back to it is like, oh yeah, I didn't realize it at the time, but like you didn't see a lot of kids who looked like that in American movies, especially not empowered. So how much has that side of things, had an impact on you, especially given that, when this movie was made, people were not talking about representation the way they would, years later.
Oh, correct. You hit many factors, especially on this topic. It's funny because I was studying with one of my professors. Her name is Diane Venora, and she says you have a choice. You could either study Hamlet or be homie number five all the time. And I thought, like, well, what's the point of all this? She goes, you get to form an identity. And I thought, oh, so whether you're playing a villain or you're playing a protagonist, you need to find his center within the frameworks of the story, and you go with that. And to me, having the trust to be able to play a character like Pedro, I thought, well, I here goes nothing. With the proper guidance of Jared Hess, who really understood and created these characters. We get to live through them, and so the impact that it made not only in the country but around the world, I thought, like, yeah, we all have voices. I never thought I would play a character like that. I there are moments when I play an astronaut, and I'm like, wow, really? Oh, and I start to learn our history, and I go, wait, we're in everything. We're everywhere. We existed in the past doing great things, and we're a part of having to just discover and create new things that we can share with each other, with all races, with all creeds. Let's share that. Let's remind each other that, you know what, we're in this world together, and trying to make something of ourselves. You
You
know?
could still be funny as hell in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You can get super serious, but like the issues can be serious. You could still be a hilarious character in the movie and hit on those things. Well, cool. I'm so appreciative of you doing this. The last thing I wanted to ask you
Yeah.
was, um, there are some great examples in history, in film history, of characters being revisited over the years, whether it's like the 400 Blows kid or like the Sunrise characters. Have you ever thought about like if you guys were to do another Napoleon Dynamite movie where these guys would be right now?
Uh, well, I talk to the cast members. I talk to them a lot, because they are like my brothers. John Heater, especially, and John Grice, Uncle Rico. He's they're constantly working. We're talking about projects and our lives as people. Sometimes I think about, well, where would Pedro be after 20 years? And I would assume he would be married to Summer Wheatley, and they would have like 5 kids, and they would have a bakery, and he would be a part of the community and try to make things happen, and with the strength of Summer Wheatley, we could create something dynamic um, and then have a beautiful honeymoon over at the Hamptons.
We could talk about that. I thought you were going to say running for president of the United States, but that's nice too.
I mean, that's nice too, but I think there are stronger influences. Somebody like Pedro. Think about the complexities life and the country can present, and try to figure out a way on how to work things out. I mean, as different as people are, it truly is about finding a common ground. And Pedro knows how to do that really well, through fear, with courage, and with love. So, without that, then what do you got, right?